Welcome, everybody. Here we are, week 1 of Ascension eSports' Dragon League. The Doctor is in, and today I am being joined by LoveDi. How you doing today, LoveDi?
I'm doing great. I'm looking forward to seeing the opening start for our Elder League and our Dragon League and our Phoenix League.
I did say Dragon League, didn't I? Now that I'm thinking about it.
I'm looking forward to all the games, to be honest. I mean, the Elder League especially.
I was gonna say, Elder League is what this actually is, so that's my bad. But
nonetheless, I'm looking forward.
Yeah, here we are. We're in Champ Select now. We're getting ready to make some plays happen, and it is 10-ban system actually. We did forget to mention that.
And assuming they set up the lobby correctly, we're going to be getting it in the style of the LCS with the tiered banning system, so we should still be seeing the first 6 bans coming out before we start to see some picks. Hopefully they did set it up right though. Looks like it's tournament draft at the top, so.
I was gonna say, it says in big, giant tournament draft letters, so, but this completely changes the way people draft, right? I mean, it used to be, you get 3 bans, you pick all your champs, good game. Now, you get to ban out 3 champs, which right now we have Caitlyn, Ivern, Lee, Gangplank, Warwick, and Zac. Now, each team is going to pick 3 champions. Then we go into a second ban phase, where each team will then ban away another 2 champions, and then the teams will take their last 2 picks.
And as we've already seen in the competitive scene all over the world, with this new 10-ban system, we typically see the bottom lane duos picking up their champions in the first rotation along with the junglers. Typically, that's actually been the current champion select meta. We see that that's no different here. We also see that besides the, of course, targeted ban towards Red Flame with his Gangplank, it all has included bot lane and jungle bans. The jungle's matchup specifically has been pinched 4 bans plus the Elise picked up already. Rosicky is now defaulting to his Nunu, something we haven't actually seen in the preseason, I believe. So going to be interesting to see how he picks that up and performs with it.
Yeah, Nunu's such a weird pick. We saw it at MSI. It was basically a disco. Like, we had people like Trick going back to it time and time again and just failing with it. Then once he gets out of group stage, he drops it seemingly. And there hasn't been any significant changes to Nunu or the jungle really since then. So it is kind of interesting to be seeing people still pick this when there's things like Gragas, sort of new Rek'Sai. There's lots of jungle picks still, and it's curious to why he would go with the Nunu.
Well, you need to keep in mind as well, and the viewers as well need to keep in mind that right now the jungle meta consists of a couple really strong duelists. Of course, the Lee Sin and Elise going to be forever popular as long as they are somewhat viable in the meta. And you have a lot of tanks. You have the Warwick and the Zac being banned away. Of course, the Ivern being considered the cousin to Nunu. But what Nunu really capitalizes on all those champions, a big weakness of them is their slower clears. They can't really just auto-farm the jungle and immediately clear an entire side of the jungle. Nunu can capitalize on that. He's got the blood boil to move him around the map, and he can follow the movements of the enemy jungler and also steal away a couple camps too to keep them behind. He's kind of a poor man's Ivern, but in the same sense, he's got that counter jungling that Ivern can't always fall back on.
So now it almost looks like when we take these first 3 picks into consideration, we have Karma, Nunu, Malzahar. It's sounding like it's a protect the AD carry draft. But, typically when we see these start to pick up, you would almost expect the enemy team to ban the hyper AD carries, right? Like the Kog'Maw, the Jinx, the Ashe, the Caitlyn, stuff like that. And, Fractured already have their AD carry. They have their Xayah, and yet they ban Lucian Shen? Like, yeah, Shen makes sense, because that's a huge part. But Lucian?
Well, what makes this composition so far very interesting is the Malzahar mid pick. It was actually picked up blind, not necessarily something you'd normally see, as Malzahar has been considered kind of the counter pick to Echo, who is considered pretty safe into most matchups. But what Malzahar does have is, as you mentioned, he's got the single target ultimate suppression, which will keep ADCs alive against whatever kind of dive might be coming towards them. But at the same time, Malzahar mid is not like an Orianna or a Karma mid. It has its own damage, and it's definitely got a threat for its single target damage, and it's definitely a much stronger secondary threat than you might get from normally maybe an Orianna or another support style mid lane. So that's why it gives them a little bit of room to flex around their last two picks and really decide how much damage distribution they really want for the composition. As we see here, the Ashe has been picked up now, and that's a lot of both minor and heavier CC now on this composition.
And you talked about the Malzahar pick being so interesting. They counter it with a Brand pick, which I find super curious because there's no escape. Malzahar can just walk up and nether grasp you, and then Nunu can come in and hit you in the mouth with a snowball. It's going to be very hard, I feel, for the Brand to get away.
In a sense, I don't feel like this Brand was picked up at all because of the singular matchup with the Malzahar, because even though ideally he has maybe something in his kit, maybe he can spread around with his E, incinerate the Malzahar to get that passive off of him, that damage immunity, but as you said, it also ensures, I believe, if he hits him with one of his abilities before the Malzahar barrier is down, he can't even proc his own passive because it blocks the first initial ability. So honestly, it seems like he almost picked himself into a harder matchup, and maybe they've got some kind of plan that we don't normally see, something definitely non-traditional, but overall they have some very strong team fighting ability, and with the Elise and the Thresh to pick off single targets right back, there's a lot of decent CC and a little bit of flexibility as well for what they can do. I'd be interested as well to see what kind of summoner spell the Brand decides to pick up as his secondary.
Yeah, so to the people watching at home, you may have seen me trying to change the resolution on my client to see if it would fix this bug,
Summoner
as
spell.
you will call it, so that we can see the summoner spells. You can see just a sliver. So as we're heading into game, we have Teleport Flash Fiora, Smite Flash Elise, Ignite Flash Brand, Heal Flash, and then Exhaust Flash, respectively, in that bottom lane. This is new. This is my first time spectating since the new tournament draft has gone live, so I can only expect that the reason those are all cut off is due to the giant tournament draft letters. Those are clearly more important for spectators than summoner spells, but
Yeah, this has been a pretty annoying bug right now. Nothing we can really do to fix it on our own. Hopefully that'll get fixed soon enough, but at least as we're loading into game as well, all the viewers will be able to see it clearly, and you've also pointed out as well. Brand going for the Ignite, definitely an interesting choice. You typically only see Ignites in the mid lane for the last year or so when there's a heavy kill potential there, when there's possibly a lot of skirmishing or heavy trades that might be happening in the lane. So if anything, what this Ignite being taken means is Brand's looking to really go in for those heavy engages and maybe trying to all in and blow someone up at the very start of a fight. And that Ignite's definitely going to help him accomplish that. I'm just interested to see how it plays out.
yeah, it is going to be very... They have a lot of, like you were saying, pick potential. If the Elise Cocoon lands, if the Death Sentence lands, there's a lot of opportunity for the Blade Dancer to come in, for the Pillar of Flame into stun from Brand. So there's a lot of options for the pick potential there. Whereas pick-wise, looking back to the Toxic Kittens on the blue side, you have Malzahar Nethergrasp, which he has to be fairly close for. Yes, he can flash for it, but that's something different. And we have the Ashe Era, which is a very good pick potential, and then you have the Inner Flame, the Snowball, lots of slows there. So it's going to be interesting to see how those two clash, because, like I was saying, Toxic Kittens Engage is ultimate abilities. Fractured don't have to worry about that. They have it on just normal abilities on 8-second cooldowns.
And something else to keep in mind as well, on the compositions as a whole, I really do like the Nunu pick, especially with how this draft wound up turning out, because both the solo lanes have what we could consider to be traditionally a favored matchup, a matchup that they should be in the first few levels should be very strongly they should have a very strong advantage early on. And in the bot lane, it's circumstantial. It really comes down to how the wave is positioned and just how aggressive this Thresh plans on being. But overall, Nunu is going to have his pick of the litter on where he wants to invade and which lanes he really wants to influence early on, because there's not going to be a singular lane that's just going to be heavily disadvantaged early on. And so he should be able to take full advantage of that and hopefully get some early Nunu-style counter jungling that we can expect to be coming out. But along with that, I'd like to talk about the bot lane matchup a little bit more, and specifically what this means considering both ADCs technically are immobile, and although Xayah of course has her kind of untargeted ability with her ultimate, it's not exactly the most reliable escape in the world. So going to be very interested to see how these junglers decide to influence the bottom lane, especially early on before they get those escapes or CC abilities available to them.
And Xayah has quickly become one of my favorite AD carries to play, to watch, to theorize for. She's so much fun, and it's really brought back a lot of life to this role, I feel. You know, we had the AD carry 2017 memes, the AD carry 2016 memes, and all of these are finally going away. AD carries are finally useful once again, and it's nice to see that coming back into flavor. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot that is going to happen in this bottom lane. I do believe it in the beginning will go to Toxic Kittens. Karma's just very abusive, and it might swing later, but there's no guarantee if you're fractured right now.
Yeah, Xayah is definitely considered a strong pick. She did just get nerfs, and of course, this isn't the tournament round. Those nerfs have already gone live for this game, and specifically something that's going to hurt her late game team fighting a lot is the change they made to her Q. And what her Q now does is it forces her to decide between, does she want more feather placement, which her Q provides, or does she want to use her auto attacking. And once you get 1 or 2 attack speed items using the double daggers, the Q to launch them instead, now it's really a painful decision for any ADC player. You, of course, late game, you want to be auto attacking constantly. You want to be hitting whoever you can, and especially for somebody like Kalista or Xayah, the more auto attacks you have, the better position you're in to really bring them all back in, right? But with this change, it's really added a lot of clunkiness to Xayah on this patch, where
which, like you mentioned Kalista. That's almost what Riot does to these champions that rely on these, auto attack mechanics. Kalista, Xayah, is instead of changing it to a way where they're less oppressive, they just break something. Like we have, like you were saying, the clunkiness now on her feathers because she can't attack on her Q anymore. But also like with Kalista, where they just straight up remove 90% of her auto, or not 90%, but they remove 10%. So now she only gets 90% value out of attack damage, and now we're left with what we got.
Right, and that is definitely something to keep in mind as well. A lot of Xayah players may not have become accustomed to the change as well, so we may see even some potential mechanical errors and really tense team fights when they realize, wait, I can't auto attack in the middle of this animation, and be interesting to see if they're well adapted to that change specifically. In the top lane, we may see some early pressure going on from this Jace. Item-wise, the Doran's Blade start for the Jace, confident that he's not going to be taking a lot of damage. I know people in general have been taking the Doran Shield just because of how safe it is. The nerfs for that went through as well, only a 50 gold change, so not too huge a deal.
Yeah, we can still see one on Xayah, in fact. Losing out on a potion is not really overall too big of a deal. It's a little less hurtful when you have a support like a Nami or a Soraka, somebody that can, easy heal, but it's still pretty common, I feel.
That is pretty interesting.
But a big engage in the top side. Jungle main should have stayed in the jungle, is gonna give up first blood to Red Flame. Unlucky.
We didn't even get to see the entire clip of that, but as we can guess, with the camera panning over to just a 3rd HP on the Fiora and her Q being on cooldown, she went for a trade. Maybe she was baited in trying to get one of those passive stacks onto the Jace, and she got punished heavily for it. Didn't even wind up flashing away in time, and this is something I was talking about as well with the item choices wise. Longsword start instead of the traditional Doran Shield start. When you're playing into something like Jace or AD Kennen, you're gonna get hit a lot. Okay, is this an all-in?
It is unfortunate. The Ignite should be enough. There it is. Xyleon is gonna pick up with a 1v1 kill and should be getting away from Tim. Tim doesn't have flash, but unfortunately doesn't matter. The Cocoon comes in, 1 auto, 2 auto. There's the Poison Fang, which is not the right ability name. That is on Cassiopeia.
That was... You could definitely see that Brand went aggressive. He knew that he was going to get the gank, and he was trying to set it up, but he wound up going down just to minion damage, and the Malefic Visions from the Malzahar, he just overestimated his tankiness, perhaps, and wound up getting punished for it in the 1-for-1. He's going to get back to the lane first, of course, but he winds up burning 3 summoners for... Oh.
Jungle Main actually winning this exchange, will get knocked back and cannot follow through the minions.
That's an interesting trade again in the top lane. The flash has been burned for the Fiora as well, and with the lane kind of in an interesting spot early on, Fiora can't really push this wave hard enough to really punish it. Jace is going to be able to get that free back after taking out a half of Fiora's HP on his own, and those 4 HP pots that Fiora came back to lane with are definitely going to be paying off pretty soon.
Yeah, and it kind of harkens back to when we used to see like Cloth 5. You know, you start with 5 health potions. Actually, if you're an OG league player,
might have a gank in the bot lane. Oh, and the
gank
top
in the
lane
top
at the same
lane.
time.
There's ganks everywhere. Jungle Main though can't get away from that because Nunu's just gonna tank all the tower damage. So those 4 health potions not as useful as he kind of hoped.
And I actually like that movement a lot because, as you can see, there was a river ward in the bottom side of the map. They saw the Elise come down to the bottom lane. The bottom lane immediately backs up, and Elise is just forced to back away without really getting anything for it. Meanwhile, Nunu coming topside knows it's sick. Oh my. Meanwhile, topside, uh-oh. Wait, I might have spoken too soon. Nope. They're going to be able to get away.
Get out of that death sentence. There was a motorcycle.
They're punishing this Fiora very hard. She had to burn her flash early on. She's playing against what's considered an unfavorable matchup, and then with the wards to know there's not going to be any counter ganks. It's just a really safe and easy tower dive attempt. And I also like what Jace did, using his TP early on. Normally I don't like top laners using their TP to get back to lane, right? But this is a Fiora and a Jace pre-6. Their TP's bottom lane, those are like emergency buttons to the next level. You don't typically expect top laners, especially those two, to be coming down early on for any kind of skirmishing, so smart move to continue that lane dominance he has on the top lane.
And at this stage of the game, we can actually see Dithex trying to use that Q auto, but Tim is going to make his way to the top side, lands the Cocoon, lands the Volatile Spider, but the Repel was not quite in range, but there also wasn't really any help from Droziki there. So for now, Red Flame's okay.
Interesting to note as well, Fiora wound up using her TP about 30 seconds after Jace did, after dying to that tower dive gank. Now, not only is Jace not going to be punished for using his TP to get back to lane, he's going to even have it up before Fiora is. And that's something to keep in mind as well. That pressure might continue out and spread to the other lanes, with Jace having a very dominant lead early on. And meanwhile, something I haven't touched on earlier, very interesting that Brand didn't go for the traditional Deathfire touch as his mastery. He has Thunderlords to add a little bit of extra burst, but not really taking full advantage of his passive either with it.
Yeah, Red Flame is just abusing this lane. That's another kill. There's no way for Jungle Main to get out of this alive.
Oh my!
The flash was burned there, so Red Flame won't have that for a later engage though.
Well, the reason he did that specifically, he went for the no counterplay flash because there's really no way to react in time. You can only predict something like a flash auto attack, and it's important to keep in mind that the riposte had not been used by Fiora yet, which blocks all the damage. He was afraid that there was going to be a potential turnaround maybe, especially since he wasn't sure whether Fiora would dive back into another brush or move forward, and so he goes for the play that guarantees him the kill without any penalty, and I do like that as well. A little aggressive, maybe excessive, but all in all, it gives him another kill.
Although now the counter flash from jungle main, there is no escape for Red Flame, so he should be going down here. The blast cone is not even popped. Shutdown coming in for the jungle main.
But important to keep in mind also, he might have considered that death worth. He already used the flash. There's no TP up for either side, and most importantly, he led Fiora away from the creep wave. Look at that CS deficit now. 25 CS, 8 minutes into the game. That's going to be a huge deficit to now surmount for the Fiora. She had to spend a good bit of time chasing him and had to burn the flash as well. She's going to keep buying those HP pots in bulk as well, and that's definitely not helping out the gold deficit that she's currently experiencing in this lane.
Yeah, and if we look at the two builds even as we head into a pause here, we have Fiora sitting on double longsword, whereas Jace now has completed his Caulfield's Warhammer and his Serrated Dirk, each of which would build out of 2 longswords, and then he has a 5th longsword in his build. So not only is he, 3-1-0, 51 CS over 30, he's essentially doubled the build, and then some, because he has 5 longswords versus 2 longswords.
Yeah, it's something to keep in mind as well. Of course, Jace's, as they came back into the meta for the last time, they no longer go the tier route. You very rarely see them go the tier of the goddess, and instead going for that scaling, and this Jace specifically is no different. Going to keep pushing that advantage despite lethality being nerfed since Jace was last popular in the meta. This is going to be a very scary Jace to deal with because that one item power spike still enables him to get a lot done. And with Fiora already losing just this 1v1 straight up all in, that Ghostblade is going to give him a nice little oomph to chase down the flashless Fiora in any more engages they might be having in the top lane.
Yeah, and typically a lot of what we've been seeing lately is like Galio versus Fiora, Gragas versus Fiora, basically tanks versus Fiora, which the most recent change to Fiora has made it so that her marks are now based off bonus damage versus what they used to be, which is just not bonus damage. So every time she procs one of her marks, it does a significant amount of damage, even to these tanks. But this time, it is a lane bully split push threat versus a lane bully split push threat. And when one of these gets far enough ahead, it makes the other one irrelevant, right?
Irrelevant to a point. It's always important to note, quick note for the viewers also, Tim, the jungler for Fractured Butthole, is the one that currently had to fix some issues. He was having a little bit of latency issues, and he's reconnected to the game now, so hopefully that'll be fixed right up shortly. But like you were saying, it is a volatile matchup. It's definitely favored from one side to the other once they get ahead. But specifically for Fiora, something that irritates quite a few people playing against her is you can never fully count her out. She's got so much mobility, and her riposte literally blocks all damage and CC for that half a second as she's casting it, where if she manages to time it perfectly to block the hammer form E from the Jace, the knockback, she can even stun the Jace and really turn this around with the percentage HP marks. You'll always have at least a little bit of relevancy, and definitely not the kind of champion you want to let free farm either. So definitely want to keep seeing some more focus from the Nunu, making sure that top side stays ahead, and I want to see Jace continue to stay aggressive in this lane.
Yeah, I'm actually a little surprised that's now 9 minutes in. Neither team has made a play for the dragon, but this bot lane is very even so far, which could be why. But then you look at the two junglers, and they're both really good, like, solo clear junglers. Nunu could easily solo dragon. Elise can solo dragon. In about a minute, we're going to have to start thinking about Rift Herald plays, too.
Right, and these are both junglers as well, as you mentioned, that will be able to kite and abuse the Rift Herald without really at risk of dying at any point. So it is interesting to see. Of course, Karma can literally walk over, clear a couple river wards, and shield the Nunu, maybe throw a few Qs, and they'd finish that off right away. And it is interesting to see so far what the jungler focus has been. We've had Elise reconnect twice now, hopefully fixing those issues very soon. In the meantime, we can talk about the mid lane. Right now, Malzahar's only got 2 Doran's rings and boots for his name, and Brand has opted for the Corrupting Potion and Darkseal start, kind of still abusing that mechanic that was very popular for quite a while. Both mid laners, however,
which actually, you'll notice that he does have the Darkseal. He bought it before Tim was able to get the return kill. That's why he has 1 stack currently instead of 0 stacks on that.
Well, it's important to note that he got that assist after he had died, like you said.
Yeah, that was what I was saying. It's like he didn't just straight up buy it.
Right. And in general, both of these mid laners opting for kind of a more lane-focused item build. They're not anywhere close to getting to major items yet. Oh, we're getting back into the game.
Yeah, so it is 5 minutes rule, where after 5 minutes you have to unpause, whether he's connected or not. So it is unfortunate, but that is part of what happens in online leagues. So it is hopeful that he doesn't spend too much time DC'd, I guess.
Right, and be interesting to see. Oh, looks like we spoke too soon. As we were talking about it in the pause, we see now Nunu's going to be going for the solo Drake. Has decided it's a good idea to go for that while an engage happens in the bottom side.
Yeah, Maggie thought he had the advantage, throws out the death sentence, it does connect, but then they end up just getting obliterated by the poke damage coming out from Karma and Ashe. But with the DC coming in, even if Tim was there, I don't think that dragon changes just because of Nunu things. But now we're seeing a Jace in its element, right?
Oh my god, okay.
That's what I'm saying. It's now a lane bully split push. That lane is done. Write it off on your taxes and move on with your life.
He didn't even empower his Q correctly there. The Shock Blast didn't even manage to get through the gate. And that was, what, 250, 300 health gone? That's only going to keep on scaling up.
Yeah,
we don't expect to see much armor built on this Fiora for quite some time, so I can expect the abuses to continue and that CS deficit to grow.
Not only that, really the only armor item that will probably come in would be a Guardian Angel, which isn't going to be for quite a while.
Not necessarily. Actually, in Korea, the Triforce build has become ever more popular, and specifically for that build, a little more detail into it. The Fiora typically goes the Hydra, or even just the Tiamat into Triforce, and once those 2 damage items are completed, they like to go for kind of a more frontline heavy style. I see Randuin's get built, or Spirit Visage. Like you said, the GA is also pretty good. Of course, Ninja Tabby considered a staple of the top lane as well, and when you get tank items like that, because Fiora has that percentage max HP on her passive for each of her marks, you still deal a decent amount of damage and you pose a threat while also maintaining that frontline survivability. So I'd be interested to see which of the Fiora builds we might be seeing today.
Yeah.
Oh, Ghost in.
Woo! The full damage coming in, the multi-bounce coming out of Haunter's ultimate there. Not quite enough to kill, but it does take both summoners just to come even.
Very interesting idea as well. This might be one of the reasons why the brand was picked up. Gives basically, even in a no creep wave available, the ultimate, the Pyroclasm, has a ton of time to bounce between the little Voidlings and Malzahar himself. We saw basically a full damage ulti onto a single target just because those Voidlings provided the extra bounces he needed. And
which maybe that's why they went with that pick. Maybe they're like, you know what, even if no minions, we'll still get the multi-bounce that we want. although it does seem a bit roundabout if you ask me.
Rift Herald has been taken away now, gifted to the Jace in the top lane, going to continue to split push that lane, and with Elise still not available in this game, looking very grim right now for the Toxic Butthole.
So actually, if Red Flame just straight up, actually, in a second, so we see Dithex getting engaged upon by Shockwave. No real, like, more damage coming out. There's the Hail of Arrows. Not the Hail of Arrows. But here's the box, comes in. Enchanted Crystal Arrow gets the stun onto Maggie. Can they finish the kill? The answer is not quite yet. Distance is not going to connect. But everybody stays alive.
Uh-oh. I predict another solo kill coming in a moment here. Oh, no. Way to dive instead. Oh, no.
Wait, the ultimate went off.
Right, but in the last 0.5 seconds of a recall, you cannot be interrupted by anything. CC, damage, anything like that. If he had really fully committed to it, he could have flashed, knowing that there's no flash for the brand anyway. Not exactly
I don't think I've ever seen that, though. I've never seen an ultimate get canceled by a recall, I think.
Just one of those things that, you know, you don't really think about until it happens to you, and that's a little bit of a tilter, burning an ultimate for nothing, but again, not much to complain about considering they've got what is essentially this game in the bag. The Rift Herald still available, and with no jungler to really help this poor Fiora out.
Flash is available for both sides. To the skies, not being used just yet. There's the grand challenge to the skies! And there is another kill going over to Red Flame Evolved.
See, that's what I was talking about. This riposte, it's very powerful when used correctly, but when not used, well, all you're doing is blocking a couple minion auto attacks with it.
Unfortunate. Rift Herald will get used. I'm not quite sure if it'll take the tower, but there doesn't seem to be any response until just now. So the tower should go down. I think the inhibitor will be fine, though.
Now it looks like going to be a little chase game going on. Brand does not have his flash available.
Pillar Flame does not land. They do have to finish off this Rift Herald before they can go too far. Both 4 members pushing in the mid lane, 5 members now. This should be the mid-tier 2 going down as well.
And you can definitely see that this team has been disheartened by the fact their jungler is no longer in the game. The rotations are slow, not exactly attempting anything, but this kind of mindlessly wandering around clearing waves, and this is just one of those games that's really unfortunate to watch happen.
Yeah, I mean, it is a best of 3 series, so at worst we have one more game. But hopefully in between the games, Tim can get his situation sorted out. There's the Nether Grasp coming in, the Enchanted Crystal Arrow not able to connect as well. Tim, unlucky.
And that's also a side effect of picking the Elise to begin with. Not necessarily the tankiest jungler in the world, and when you're already behind on levels like that, behind just on raw stats, it gives the potential for a very bad time.
It can be very hard to stay alive on Elise. Red Flame has 3 members converging on him. Flash into the skies, knocks him out of the Pillar of Flame. There's the Pyroclasm, not really gonna connect. To the skies connects, but the Power Blast did not! Still gets one, still running away, still alive! Red Flame has some friends now. Here comes Ion, throws down the Space Age. Hook lands on to Red Flame. Well, what more can they get out of this?
Well, even though there were a couple mechanical misplays, not a single Shock Blast was landed, he did technically just 1v4 and escape with his life. That was pretty impressive. Definitely a little bit of nerves caught up to the red team as well, but very nicely played by Red Flame, and he manages to get out not only with a kill, but with a little bit of the red team's pride along with it.
A little bit of their heart and soul. But no lifesteal means he should have to go back. No lifesteal outside of the Doran's Blade. But it does...
Don't forget those 2 Ocean Drakes, though.
Yeah, Ocean Drake's very helpful. It's probably my personal favorite Drake outside of the Infernal. But when I'm playing, if I have an Ocean Drake spawning, I'm like, team, we need this. I don't want to go back to base.
And it's very helpful in these situations with an open inhibitor in the top side as well. Lets them siege up for longer.
Holy! Why even flash? I'll never know. There's the kill. Red Flame is on a rampage. There's not really anything that can be done here. That Death Sentence was blocked by a Voidling, actually. That was pretty neat.
Interestingly enough, they're backing off from the 4v4 right now on the top side. Jace is pushing the bottom side. They can definitely keep pressuring this.
Yeah, 2 members had to respond, but Hunter's just gonna die. Just annihilated. 8-1-0 on Red Flame's Jace. I think this is game. I think this is just about game. I don't know if the 15-minute surrender is allowed in tournament drafts. Flash is available for Tim. There's the flash. There's the bite. Shutdown coming in on to Red Flame.
But in the end, they managed to accomplish what they were looking for. They got the inhibitor in the top side. Jace is not really going to be a heavy price to pay, considering they're planning on backing off anyway, and really a little bit of gold onto the D-seed member and in exchange for what could potentially be a flash cocoon in the next fight, it's probably considered pretty worth.
Yeah, it does open up a second inhibitor though. We will be having a Baron spawn in a minute. It's going to be interesting to see if we try to see an early go for it while the Infernal Drake spawns as well. I mean, Red Flame's 8-2-0 has 3 completed items. I don't think they'd be really hard-pressed to try and take a Baron.
Right, and that's something really to just... Nothing's really going right now for this red team. Of course, the DC is unfortunate. The top lane is huge right now, and there's not necessarily some kind of late game hyper scaling they can fall back onto as well. Of course, they could get lucky. They could go full Skara and get the 5-man AoE with the brand. Maybe get a nice little pentakill or something like that. But other than a perhaps miracle team fight, this game's definitely not going to be lasting much longer.
Baron has spawned. Jungle main is going to die to minions any second now. And with the Baron being started, this is a bold call. They will do it quick. They have the Blade of the Ruined King. They do have the Nunu. They have the Malzahar. They do get blue pings out. Red Flame takes down the Pyroclasm. Will instantly trade back the kill, however. No question. Enchanted Crystal Ray lands onto Xayah. The Flame play cancels out the absolute zero. Tim is in the backline, gets taken down. Nethergrass lands onto the Xayah as well, and Samano is going to clean up the fight with a double kill. Might as well have cleaned up the game. Second inhibitor goes down, and the team is running to the top side.
He actually bought the Veil? Or
no,
the Edge of Night? That's
yeah,
something I haven't seen for a long time.
Because it's bad now. It's fine. There's the 21-minute surrender. So that is game 1 between Toxic Kittens and Fractured But Whole. And with game 1 going over to the Toxic Kittens, we will have to see if they can take this spawn time back to maybe try and fix up Tim's connection issues a little bit.
And with that, we're going to have to probably go into a little bit of a break as we try and get the second game started up. Not too much to really analyze post-game for that one, just some unfortunate circumstances, at the same time top lane snowballing out of control. And overall, just a little bit of an unfortunate game, but something that happens from time to time, especially in the early on weeks.
Yeah, I do think there has to be a change in that top lane, to say the least. I mean, when you have a jungle main, which is, I believe you did say he was actually a jungle main. When you have someone that's not in their main role, it's not necessarily the best option to put them on such a sink or swim option. But with that, guys, we are going to take a short break as we head into game number 2. So stay tuned for that. We will be right back after these teams set up with their coaches, try and figure things out a little bit more, and see if they can't find a solution to everything that went wrong in that game.